Hello everybody, this is GeneralJannis, and today in Chaos Tactics, the much-awaited Death Guard faction focus for all of us playing Death Guard. Our beloved Legion has gotten some new rules, so let's see what the Games Workshops have done with our Legion. So today, the 17th of May, I had a game from Arcs of Omen. My Chaos Knights went a nice game versus Chaos Demons. I won 93-73, but that, of course, all that is, of course, 9th edition. So, as I said today, I've been waiting for a very long time to hear some rules for Death Guard. Actually, last night, guys, I was nervous. I was really anxious of what we would learn today. So I even had a nightmare that we had some terrible rules. And let's see what we got. But as I said in this video, focusing on the Death Guard faction focus, the army rules, looking at the Blightlords that we have seen, the Malignant Plaguecaster, the tables for weapon damage output that we have so far, and then also the durability calculation, very important for a slow army like Death Guard to have resilience and durability. And let's see what we got there. So starting off with Death Guard army rules, a lot of the armies, the other faction focus, they have been turning upside down their army rules, but for Death Guard we have the army rule is Nurgle's Gift. Basically the Contagions as we know them today, -1 toughness aura, but instead now we get a buff here that the Contagion starts from 3 inch, then it goes up to 6 inch, and already from the third battle round onwards we have 9 inch Contagion. So everything nice and well here in the Death Guard army rule. And then if we look at the detachment ability, now it's just called the Plague Company, so it's basically a Plague Company detachment. This means also when we get our index, there will be no additional detachments for specific Plague Companies, so we will have this generic Plague Company. This is called Spread the Sickness to confuse all the names from the secondary action we have today. And this means that we will have the objectives will be sticky objectives. As long as we control them, then we can move away from the objectives. And also these objectives will also be carrying Nurgle's Gift and spread the contagion across the board. And the enemy has to take them actively away from us. Yeah, so not bad to get this sticky objective rule on top of cover contagion. But unfortunately, they start off the article talking about the resilience of durability of Death Guard, but there is no mention whatsoever of any measure to increase our resilience. Our discussing resilience today, -1 toughness. In 8th edition, it was 5+ feel no pain, army-wide basically. Now it seems to be gone, unless maybe some of the characters or some other special rule would be giving us that, but there was no mention of it whatsoever. Now previewing the Blightlords datasheet that we have seen. So basically we see the stat here, we have a toughness increase from toughness 5 to toughness 6. As in the normal Space Marine Terminators go up to toughness 5, then Games Workshop gives us 1 more pip of toughness, but any loss of disgusting resilience is a big letdown. On top of this, to to pay for our toughness 6 and losing our disgusting resilience, now the Blightlord Terminators will have a 4 inch move like in 8th edition, and this is really slow. You can still deep strike them. If you lose your charge, then with 4 inch you can't catch anything. And is that basically a must that we will need to use more transports or land raiders or something like this? Because with 4 inch, it's difficult to go anywhere on the battlefield. They still have a 2+ save and a 4+ invul save, like in the current editions. But compared to that, we lost our disgusting resilience, and I will show the data for durability. The Space Marine Terminators, they have gained a big buff to their durability with the new rules, but not so much our Blightlord Terminators. For some of the weapons, and especially damage 1 weapons, toughness 6 can help us, but yeah, no feel no pain or something. I would have wished we could get our feel no pains back. If we look at their weapons, we have the Blight Launcher, now we have the Plague Combi Bolter, a nice name, and we have a combi weapon like we saw from the Librarian, that's an anti-infantry, always wounding on 4+. and can do mortal wounds when it wounds. And then the Plague Spewer, basically as we know it, but also anti-infantry weapon, so that's quite nice. Wounding infantry always on 2+, so basically another weapon that bypasses the toughness. So toughness 6, 5, or 4 here doesn't make sense with the Plague Spewer. And then the Reaper autocannon. We see that a lot of the weapons have the lethal hits ability, and there is a lot of anti-infantry weapon, but they lack somehow any anti-vehicle capabilities, now that most vehicles will be toughness 9 and higher. There is no mention for plague weapons, so it seems like plague weapons rule is gone. But they get the blistering fusillade, so every time Blightlords make a range attack, if they target the closest enemy unit, they can reroll a wound roll of 1. This means that Blight Launchers, Combi Bolters, Reaper Autocannons, they will all be rerolling if you target so all their weapons basically become plague weapons as we know them today if you target the closest enemy, but not in melee. In melee there doesn't seem to be anything allowing to reroll the wound rolls. But we see the Bubotic Blade and the Flail of Corruption. They have the lethal hits ability. Bubotic Blade seems to be substituting the axes and swords, so no more ripping them off every other edition. Damage 1, AP -2, but we get a baseline of 4 attacks with the Bubotic Blades. The Flail of Corruption still 6 attacks, so not double the amount of attacks for a normal Blightlord, but AP is reduced, and we see AP is reduced for quite a lot of weapons. The Blight Launcher loses AP, also the Reaper autocannon. So AP decreasing, we've seen that for a lot of factions. Death Guard seem to be, at least the Blightlords seem to have more an anti-infantry profile, and with her toughness 6, could be also surviving this type of anti-infantry weapons. But the 4-inch move, I think, could be a bad blow for the Blightlord Terminators. Now moving on to the Malignant Plaguecaster datasheet. Basically his stats are a bit unchanged, so no toughness increase for this normal non-Terminator. Death Guard units presumably, so 5-inch move, 5 toughness, 3+ save. He still has only 4 wounds, but now he's a leader and he can join units that will keep him more protected. And he has a Plague Bolt pistol. Again, nice to get the Plague Bolt pistols, and the Plague weapons seem to be just getting lethal hits. So his Bolt pistol is a lethal hit. So on 6s to hit are good also versus some high toughness targets. And then he has the Plague Wind Witchfire, which is a shooting attack, like now the Psychic will be. But this is quite interesting because this is an auto hit type of attack. So basically, it's like a plague psychic flamer. And the question is, if you do the focused Witchfire, you get D6 plus 3 shots, strength 6, AP -2, D3 damage, auto hitting, and then it gets the hazardous rule. But hazardous, I don't know how that will work with auto hitting weapons, because hazardous normally is like the plasma guns today. They have previewed that once to hit, you get mortal wounds or are slain or something like this. But if it's an auto hit weapon, do you even get him some mortal wounds? So that's quite interesting, because in that case you would always take the focused Witchfire. And then he has the Gift of Contagion, another psychic ability. So in the shooting phase, you can give them D3 mortal wounds, an infantry on a 2+, and you subtract 1 from the wound roll of this enemy unit. But the problem here is that it's 1 to 6 risk to get mortal wounds. At least it doesn't go directly to the Malignant Plaguecaster. If he's in a unit, his unit will take D3 mortal wounds for him. But it's quite a high risk, and today the risk to suffer perils is only 1 per 18. So much more risky to do a 2+ and get D3 mortal wounds. And then the pestilential fallout in the shooting phase. This is something that can make enemy units slower. If the Plague Wind scores a wound against the infantry, then you subtract -2-inch move characteristics and -2 from advanced charge rolls. So basically, you're taking down the enemy to death card levels. And then the weapon focus on the Plagueburst Scroller Mortar. Now the Plagueburst Scroller still is going to have a 48-inch. It still has blast and indirect fire, but it also is auto-wounding with lethal hits, so that's also quite nice. And now we have an increase in the number of attacks. Instead of d6 attacks, we get d6 plus 3, and this is always nice. But yeah, today when you shoot with a mortar and you only have one shot, that doesn't feel nice. But again, losing some AP minus 1, and now it has a nice additional effect that if you score a hit against infantry, then this infantry, you're forcing them to take a battle shock test. That could be quite nice if you're contesting some objectives, and yeah, the battle shock loss would make your opponent then, for example, lose their objective control ability. But again, also more anti-infantry type focus here, again with lethal hits. And then they show us one of the 6 stratagems for the Plague Company detachment. For 1 command point, you give exploding 6s in the fight phase for 1 death card unit, and this is becoming every 6 to hit gives 2 additional hits if you are close to one of your own objectives. So that's quite nice to defend against enemy units trying to fight you off an objective. You can get quite a lot of extra damage. Typically, when you get exploding 6s and get 1 additional hit, that's 25% more damage output. And now the death card weapons damage output. In this table, you see all the death card weapons we know so far with their abilities. And in the table, you see how much damage they do against other units we have seen from the other units faction focus, from the lowly Termagants up to something like Abaddon and Gilliman, or the Space Marine vehicles like the Repulsor. Please note in each of the squares, if it says something 0,7, the comma is the decimal point in my system, so don't get confused by this. And here the first 5 weapons are the weapons for the shooting weapons for the Blightlords. So we're starting with a Plague Combi Bolter. If it targets the closest enemy, we reroll once to wound. This has the lethal hits, etc. abilities, 4 attacks with a Plague Combi Bolter, and we can do some quite nice damage now with the lethal hits and rerolling once to wound. A Plague Combi Bolter much improved as compared to the current Combi Bolter that didn't have rerolls and things built into the profile. If we go to the special combi weapon, it's not much better. It has less number of shots, and it's not better than the Plague Combi Bolter for most of the targets. It's quite good against the Terminators, we can see, but otherwise, just the Plague Combi Bolter seems to be a better option here. The Plague Spewer, wounding infantry always on a 2+ and auto hitting, is quite good against the chaff infantry like Termagants, or 1 wound infantry like Necron Warriors and Intercessors. Also can do something against Terminators, but then the damage wears off versus the vehicles and things like that, where it's not really strong against vehicles. And then comparing the Blight Launcher and the Reaper Autocannon, always a big theme currently on the Blightlords. Should I take the Blight Launcher or the Reaper Autocannon? And here we can see that the Reaper Autocannon is better versus basically every target compared to the Blight Launcher. The Reaper Autocannon has exploding 6s. It has devastating wounds, meaning that on 6s to wound it gives mortal wounds instead. The Blight Launcher has lethal hits. It has a damage 2, but that's not that doesn't help it enough versus the vehicles, and it has, of course, half number of shots. Previously, the Blight Launcher had a good advantage over the Reaper Autocannon being a plague weapon, but now both of them, if they target the closest enemy, will be rerolling once to wound, so no benefit additionally to take the Blight Launcher. So from these rules so far, it seems like the Reaper Autocannon will be the weapon of choice as a special weapon for the Blightlords, together with a Plague Combi Bolter, I would assume, to lay down some lethal hit type of high amount of fire. If we move on to melee, the Bubotic Blade and the Flail of Corruption, both of them have lethal hits, and we see the Flail of Corruption has higher damage compared to the Bubotic Blade, but it's not as pronounced as it was before. Now we have a nice base attack, four base attacks per Blightlord with the Bubotic Blade, and 6 attacks, or 50% more attacks with the Flail of Corruption, especially against something with 2 wound models like the Intercessors. It's better, and of course probably you should take the Flail, but it's not as clear as it is currently with the current rules. And then we are looking at the Malignant Plaguecaster. I didn't take his pole pistol. I take the normal Plague Wind and the focused Plague Wind, and you see for the focused Plague Wind with D6 plus 3 attacks, D3 damage, strength 6, AP minus 2. You get some very high damage across the table here. So 1 killed the Terminator here, 2.5 killed Intercessors, and also you can stack with his abilities to make them slower after you hit them with a Plague Wind. So overall, some good damage, even versus something like vehicles here. And the corrupted stuff then in melee, he can make some damage. Finally, the Plagueburst Crawler Mortar, benefiting now from high number of shots, at least a minimum of 4 shots every time you use it. It also has the blast, so it could be targeting you get even more shots if you are shooting at big units, and you can force them to make battle shock test, good against something like Intercessors and another type of infantry, but it can also do some damage versus vehicles. And then focusing on maybe the most important thing, Blightlord's durability. And in this table, I'm looking at some of the typical weapons we have seen so far previewed from the 10th edition. If they are attacking the Space Marine Terminators and the Blightlords with toughness 6 now, and you see, for example, if on the table the numbers, for example, 20 means that 20 Storm Bolters at half range are needed to take down 1 Blightlord Terminator. So that will be not 20 Storm Bolter shots, but 20 models with Storm Bolters having 4 attacks each in this example. And here I have also added for the Space Marine Terminators. The first column is the current rules, where they have toughness 4 and 5 plus invul save. And now the Space Marine Terminators are in 10th edition. They will be toughness 5 and 4 plus invul save. The Blightlords with toughness 6, still 2 plus save, 4 plus invul, and the current Blightlords with toughness 5, but with disgusting resilience. And we see that for damage 2 weapons, and like the Shuriken Cannon or the Blight Launcher or Power Fist or Plagueburst Crawler Mortar or something like this, the current profile of the Blightlords, even with toughness 5, is better than the toughness 6 profile. And where the new edition Blightlords with toughness 6 will be better is versus strength 3, strength 5, and strength 6 damage 1 weapons. Only on those points they will be better than the Blightlords. Some of the weapons, especially looking at something like the Plague Spear from Death Guard, it's a damage 1 weapon, strength 5. It doesn't really matter the toughness 6, because then this is an anti-infantry weapon. So the more lethal hits, the more anti-infantry hits that the enemy army has, the less the toughness means so much. But losing discussion resilience will mean that we will be losing more Terminators to high weapon fire, like the Lehman Ross battle cannon damage weapon that wouldn't be able to kill so easily Blightlords. Now of course it will be better, but comparatively here, looking at the current Space Marine Terminators, going from toughness 4 and 5 plus invul going up to toughness 5 and 4 plus invul, we see for most of the weapons they will be better than current situation, and for many of the weapons the Space Marine Terminators will be quite comparable to Blightlord Terminators. So Blightlord Terminators losing a bit their edge versus their Space Marine equivalent, and much slower with a 4-inch move. So, reaching the summary and final thoughts, I tried to make this video as quickly as possible to get this out to you guys, and we can see, of course, a lot to unpack here, a lot of rules we don't know yet, and a lot of other potential good rules. What we know so far is that contagions are kept, and the sticky objective of the detachment rule should be quite useful in the game, being able to move off objectives and better spreading of the contagion. That should help. Death card. There is no mention of any additional resilience. This is the main problem I see so far. Uh, we have lost the discussion resilience, and no mention of gaining something equivalent. We just saw the Terminators getting one more pip of toughness. That is not as crucial as a discussing resilience, feel no pain, or something like this would add more to Deathcard's resilience. And we definitely didn't need more decreasing of our speed. 4-inch, I remember from 8th edition, deep striking a lot of contagion with some Blightlords. You lose your charge, and then they're just stuck on the board somewhere, and they never come into play. We saw also there is no assault weapons for the Blightlords, so if you advance them, you can't shoot. And there is some difficult rules here getting across the boards. So will that push us more to mechanized army, using a lot of transports, unloading the Blightlords, keeping the objectives? They should be quite good at holding the objectives, also with the strats, etc. They can punch also quite well, maybe improved now with a lot of lethal hits. And the plague weapons, as we have seen, they seem to become typically weapons where we have lethal hits, basically auto wounding on 6s to hit. And this the stratagem that we have seen giving sustained hits can be quite strong. But all in all, the decreasing of speed, doesn't really help us. So I guess with all these lethal hits and sustained hits type of rules, I think we all Plague Brothers need to start practice hitting 6s to hit. That could really be make a very big difference. So let me know, what do you think about these our rules? Are you upset? Are you okay? Still optimistic? There will be many better things in the total rules. Let's see. I'm ready as always here to do the analysis. So when we have more stats, I will do all the math hammering to try to help you guys, and also myself, to what to select on my army, at least going forward. So if you like to discuss further, you can visit the Discord channel. If you want to support my efforts to bring you all this updated information, please visit my Patreon page or become a YouTube member. And with these words, GeneralJannis signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye-bye.